a new Middle-earth show in development. If you're a fan of Ted Lasso, I have a show recommendation for you. Some fun MCU news, STEVEN Yeun joining the Thunderbolts, and Spider-Man potentially leading KANG Dynasty. All the hype for Mandalorian Season 3 is real, and we get into our thoughts on Cocaine Bear. Welcome to the madness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine. Hello, the Morgan.
Hello, the Machine. You know how I like to do stupid little faces and things like that when you do the intro. You said Cocaine Bear, and I didn't want to look as though I was doing something
shady,
particularly shady, live on YouTube, as people would have been able to watch me look like I was ingesting something Cocaine Bear related. Exactly. And we wouldn't have wanted that, would we? No, we wouldn't have wanted anybody to think that was happening at all. Hello, everyone. How are you? If you're listening on audio, then you have no idea what sort of reference I'm making. But if you are watching on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, you probably did see me just go and realise to myself, no, it's probably best to just not do the act of ingesting cocaine.
I mean, people might just think you have a bit of a cold, so that's okay.
No, I was going to go like fully all out and do like just finger under the nose kind of line situation, but powder
just coming out for some flair.
Perhaps this episode of Monday Madness will get particularly mad when we get into our Let's Talk, which is actually our full review of Cocaine Bear.
Yes.
The rather insane new action horror movie, really, I suppose. Is it a horror movie?
I think, with the amount of kills, I could consider it there a little bit.
Animal attack movie. Let's call it Animal Attack movie. Elizabeth Banks directed. Starring way too many people, I think. Sometimes for its own good. But I wasn't quite expecting the pretty decent ensemble cast you do get in Cocaine Bear. We do certainly have things to talk about beforehand, though, don't we, Jeannine? I feel like I should just start by asking the question, although I often do like to ask, how are we? How are you? How am I? How are they? And let us know how you are, guys, because, it's all very well and good for us to ask each other how we are. But,
how are
you watching and listening to Monday Madness? Because we hope you're great too. And I hope that by the time this show airs, that I am in a wonderful mood. I could either go one of two ways, you see, Jeannine.
Yes.
I could either be in a really happy mood or thoroughly miserable.
Yes.
Because
you are someone who lets football dictate your emotions.
Often, which this is because it's been ingrained from literally the week after you're born. Now, Manchester United, have a cup final on Sunday, which is this weekend, which is tomorrow, actually, as of the day of the recording, but obviously yesterday as of the day of airing.
Oh.
So we either won our first trophy since 2017, which for United is unacceptable, and would be, a great turning point for our new lovely turtleneck-wearing manager.
Yes.
And all the delightful players that we have now. I love them all, most of them. I certainly love our delightful... I brought up Erik ten Hag before on Monday Madness and how much I just love him as a manager, and people think I copy his style, but I'll have you know I was wearing turtlenecks long before I ever knew who Eric Ten Hag was. So he copied me. Actually, go back, check the facts, check the videos, check the photos. It's true. But we could very well play Newcastle. So we could very well be lifting a trophy.
At the time of the airing of this episode.
Well, yes, it would have been yesterday.
Yes.
So it's quite exciting, really. Or I'll be miserable because for some reason we didn't. I don't want to say any more than that because I'll end up jinxing things and rambling on about things that people don't want to listen to because this isn't a football show.
No, it is not.
Jeannine, if I had a football show, it'd be ridiculously United focused and wouldn't be
probably
anywhere near as good because, as you will probably
there would be a very strong bias, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, there would be, yes, but as you will probably realize, there is also incredibly successful and incredibly popular United-based YouTube channels and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's that. I'll just ask the question, Jeannine. So, Jeannine.
Well, we have a few things up, and since you are talking about football, my coworker and also my TV recommended a new show for me. I was watching Apple TV, and it was basically like, you know, if you enjoy the show Ted Lasso, a football-based show, which I would actually really love to do a new series on this channel. Morgan hasn't seen TV, where you watch shows you haven't seen. I would love to do a series of that on Ted Lasso for you and see how you kind of enjoy this football show. But I was recommended this show by a coworker and my Apple TV, if you are a fan of Ted Lasso, to check out the new show Shrinking with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford, which Harrison Ford is really busy right now. He's doing that.
He kind of is, right?
Yellowstone prequel show. He's got this show going. He's got the new Indiana Jones movie, and now he's in the MCU doing the, you know, General Ross stuff. So yeah, he's really kind of back into the game, like head on, full on. So
which you just wouldn't have thought, would you?
Yeah,
a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, that we'd be looking at a 2023 where Harrison Ford is a busy guy.
Yeah, he seemed like he was just kind of done, maybe just happy living his little life with Callista Flockhart, and you know, he seemed like he was kind of pulled out of just kind of relaxing and forcibly made to do these Star Wars movies to his chagrin and disappointment and irritation. But to kind of, you know, first off, seeing just the love and excitement he had for this new Indiana Jones movie when seeing him talk about it at D23 and how emotional he got. And now seeing him do all these shows and things and doing bouncing to TV, because I don't think you see him as an actor doing TV.
Well, so no, yeah, but I mean, there's so much crossover now between
and TV has become a real,
like it was.
Yes, TV has become a real kind of marquee format now for actors, big name actors, to kind of flex their muscles elsewhere in stories that they can kind of really delve into for you know, a longer period than a 2-hour runtime. So
yeah, for a lot of actors, you know, for a lot of
I mean, his co-host in that
creatives.
His co-host in that Yellowstone prequel show is Helen Mirren. So
okay.
Yeah, so I started watching Shrinking. I've watched about 3 episodes and I'm really enjoying it. I knew it was kind of something based on kind of therapists, but I wasn't really sure of the premise. But it follows Jason Segel. He is a therapist who has just lost his wife. He has a teenage daughter, and they have kind of grown apart because he kind of allowed himself to sink into his depression by just kind of hooking up with random women, drinking, taking a bunch of kind of prescription drugs to kind of deal with it, separate from his daughter. So she kind of has a lot of resentment and anger towards him in terms of how, they didn't get to go through that grieving process together. He didn't recognize that this was something she was also kind of going through. He kind of just started being very kind of reckless and not really, being a good father to her. So she's kind of had to rely on a neighbor who kind of it takes care of her. She'll go over to the neighbor's house and she'll help her with her homework and make sure she gets dinner and goes to like her soccer games. And she kind of gives Jason Segel this wake up call because he's being really loud in his backyard. And she kind of goes up to him and sees him having 2 young girls in the pool, and he's like taking Adderall and like drinking
Okay.
alcohol. And she tells him, like, you're gonna lose your daughter. You need to get your shit together. So this kind of gets him to, have this kind of wake up call moment. So as he's kind of meeting with patients, he has this moment where he just breaks into honesty. He has this patient who is with this terrible husband. He says like the only value she has are like her beautiful boobs and she's not worth
Oh,
much
that's nice.
and all of these things. So he just kind of tells her, it's like, how many times you've been coming here for 2 years? You tell me the same shit every time. Why are you with this man? He obviously does not value you more than just your body. Who tells you that? You are worth way more than that. You need to leave him and go live with your sister in Vancouver. Get away from this man. He obviously doesn't care about you. Like things like your therapist, therapists are supposed to be kind of indifferent, unjudgmental, and just kind of let you kind of talk and kind of guide you, but not, really manipulate the conversation or straight tell you what to do in situations.
Yeah.
But he's just at this breaking point. They kind of go through this montage of patients kind of just lamenting things and telling him the same things over and over again, to where he finally hits this breaking point with this woman and tells her to leave her husband. And he even gives her this ultimatum: either leave your husband or I will no longer be your therapist. And he's also kind of hungover from this night before of, binging and whatever. So then, she actually ends up calling him and telling him she left her husband. So he now is kind of considering this alternative way of giving therapy to people, of just kind of being straight
Okay.
honest with them. He has another patient who violently beat somebody up just for giving him a weird look. And, he kind of asks him, what makes you angry? What makes you mad? What makes you rage out like this and attack people? And he says, everything makes me angry. Somebody gives me a weird look. Someone's breathing wrong. And I just want to beat them up. And then I don't realize what I've done until I've done it. So then he takes him to like a boxing ring and lets him like spar with like fighters to get this out of his system. And it kind of seems to be working with this guy too. So now he's like going through these alternative ways of kind of being a therapist, and he works for Harrison Ford's practice. So when Harrison Ford is kind of his mentor. So when Harrison Ford kind of gets wind that he is doing these kind of alternative ways of therapizing people, he's kind of getting frustrated with him, but he does care about him to some degree. So it's very much this mentor-mentee kind of relationship. Jason Segel's kind of doing this off-the-cuff therapy while also trying to repair the relationship with his daughter. And it's just kind of interesting to see if this is going to work long term, if he's going to continue this, if it's going to cause more problems for him, if Harrison Ford's going to stop him because it's kind of messing up his practice. Harrison Ford's character has gotten a Parkinson's diagnosis, so he's dealing with that as well. And so, yeah, and it's kind of this great mentor-mentee energy between the two of them. It's really funny, but also there's some heartfelt moments as well. So it's very much like Ted Lasso, where you get some really fun, silly comedy. You meet some really endearing characters, but then you also get some dramatic things as well. So, obviously flashes of moments with him and his wife, and then him dealing with that, and him kind of having these difficult conversations with his daughter, who wants to, repair the relationship, but she's also very angry with him for how he's
Yeah.
dealt with it in terms of her. So really interesting things happening just alone in these first 3 episodes that I've seen. So if you have Apple TV, if you have access to that, if you are a fan of Ted Lasso, I would definitely recommend the show Shrinking. It's really a great show. I've been enjoying it thus
Okay.
far. So yeah.
Nice. I mean, it does. I'm just thinking. Really, obviously, I haven't seen any of this show. This is something you wanted to talk about on the show this week, and it does sound pretty interesting. It sounds pretty nice to watch, to be
Yeah.
fair. And where's Jason Segel been?
I know.
So that's kind of nice to see him back doing something. But
Yeah.
also, Apple TV just seems to be getting stronger and stronger in its output, and or at least more respected
I mean, yeah,
by
like
a lot of people in what it puts out there. I remember when it started, did it not start with that silly space show or something like that?
I
The
think
Space
so.
Force show or something? Or was
Something
it
like
like
that.
I don't know if it was that or if it was something with Jennifer Aniston.
Well, they had the morning show.
The morning show.
Yes. So I've watched that too. That's a really solid show. I started noticing kind of TV shows and things on Apple TV because our mutual friend Brandon Hanna, he was doing a lot of stuff with the Popcorn Talk channel, and
Okay.
they were doing he was hosting an after show about this horror show written by M. Night Shyamalan, Servant. And so to kind of support him in hosting this show, I or BuzzFeed TV, or no, it was Buzz. I can't remember what the name of the channel is, but it was not BuzzFeed. But AfterBuzz.
Afterwards.
Yes. So into kind of supporting him hosting this after show, I started watching Servant, and it's actually a really good show. Toby Kebbell, who's
Okay.
trying to make Toby Kebbell a thing in so many movies, and it just isn't
it was
taking.
always poor Toby Kebbell, wasn't it? And
Yes,
look at all these things he's trying, but
to
always
do,
in these
but
failing
just
movies.
doesn't work out. But he was great in the Servant show, and I really got into it. So I haven't watched kind of the last 2 seasons, but but it's a show I definitely want to kind of revisit and get back into. But that was when I saw, okay, they're putting like some good production in this show, really great tone of M. Night Shyamalan's kind of quirky, weird ideas, kind of really great horror elements in here. So that's when I noticed Apple TV as a kind of show kind of identity, and a channel really kind of also having a creative flair in creating shows. And so then of course Ted Lasso, that kind of built in popularity, and so I jumped on that bandwagon and really fell in love with Ted Lasso. Then from there I went to the morning show, and then the show was recommended to me, and so I've been really enjoying it just 3 episodes in. So
Well, I think Ted Lasso is Apple TV's baby. It's Apple TV's golden or holy grail almost, isn't it? It's the golden god of Apple TV.
Which is why you need to watch it.
It is, but it's good for competition, really. It's good for TV competition that Apple TV can continue. It hasn't been just kind of a one show streaming service. Like like some of the small ones, even something like Peacock TV, I'm yet to hear of something that just stands out that's come out from
originally
Peacock
from
TV.
that.
Originally from that. That's not. Isn't that where the Star Trek stuff is? Have I got that right?
I think so.
No,
Yeah.
Paramount.
Paramount
Plus where the
and
Star Trek
Paramount
things
Plus,
are.
I think they have Yellowstone, and then they're branching off kind of side shows, like the one with Sam Elliott, like the prequel shows, and then the one now with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. So that's kind of their golden goose, but they don't have really anything other than Yellowstone to kind of hang their hat on. Whereas Apple TV seems to have
that is their original.
Yes, right? That's what I'm saying. So Apple TV has several original great shows, whereas Paramount Plus, something like that, only really has kind of one big kind of
but at least it has
thing.
At least it does have one big one that is a very obviously well-respected TV show.
Yeah.
as well as all the Star Trek stuff. There are the smaller ones that haven't, I've not heard any standout from yet. And I know people tend to complain, and even I tend to complain about the quantity of streaming services is a little bit overwhelming. It's a little bit too much. But that's just because I still think everybody still has Netflix.
Yeah,
And I
Netflix
just think
really kind of was the
that's
first one to really be
going
coming out
away.
with not just original movies, but original shows. So you get your Stranger Things and stuff like that. But now even, Amazon with, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and The Boys
Yeah,
and,
Prime's
you
getting
know,
really good. Prime is
yeah,
getting a lot
Fleabag
better
and
than
yeah,
it used to
mhm.
be. A
Yeah.
lot better than it used to be.
So yeah,
Um,
like I appreciate the kind of production going into these original shows from streaming services and like HBO kind of obviously having original
you
shows
can't,
since
yes,
before streaming services with, Sex and the City and
you can't fault
Game of
HBO.
Thrones and now that they do have a streaming service really delving into some great, even more great original content. But yeah,
Yeah.
Apple TV definitely proving it's a player in this original TV game with great shows like Ted Lasso, and I'm really enjoying the Shrinking show, so I'm excited to kind of delve into it a little bit more. But yeah, if you are a fan of if you're looking for a new original show to watch, if you are a fan of Ted Lasso, a great mix of kind of comedy but very emotional elements and characters you can really get behind and really invest in. I think Shrinking is definitely a show worth checking out.
I do think the Apple TV shows are something I'm willing to kind of delve into next, almost, because obviously there are what you would think of as HBO shows. Obviously, they're not
Yeah,
technically HBO in Britain because we don't have HBO Max, but it's the equivalent.
yeah.
Um, those shows I'm familiar with. Obviously, I watch plenty of HBO related shows. I've watched HBO shows.
Yeah.
Um, but Apple TV, I haven't watched anything from Apple TV.
Yeah, I think you would really love Servant. It's a great horror show. The movies that when we did our Shyamalan series, the movies that you enjoyed from his catalog, I think
Okay.
Servant does a lot of those things. It has a lot of good twists in it. Rupert Grint is in the show doing
Ooh.
full on American. So,
Oh, is
um
that why he's in Knock at the Cabin? Because he's a Shyamalan kind of
yes,
person now. Is that what
probably.
he is?
Probably. So, yeah, I would love to do a new series on this channel. Maybe a Morgan Hasn't Seen TV where we kind of delve into some of these Apple shows because there are a lot of good ones on there that
Yeah.
I think you'd enjoy. So,
Well, yeah. It's good to know that there's another growing player in the streaming wars out there. As
yeah.
as as much as we kind of lament at the streaming wars. Why do we have to pay for so many streaming services and all this kind of stuff? It does create that competition for TV to just continue to get
To get
better and
better.
better. It really, really does. And I think that's just a good thing when, the majority of the most popular, the highest earning movies are tending to get a little bit less and less thoughtful
Yeah.
and a little bit, somewhat by the numbers, as much as we do enjoy them for the most part. There's certainly some heavy blockbusters that make a lot of money that are truly trash bag for the most part.
Yeah.
You think of what Jurassic World has turned into and things like that. That's just it's not great, really, is it? It's
Yeah.
not for how successful it is financially.
Yes, and how
It's
how
not
it's
great.
and how acclaimed it started out to be, you
Well,
know.
yeah. Um, say what you want about the MCU. We obviously enjoy the MCU. We enjoy comic book movies, superhero movies, that kind of thing. I do think there's a spark that's been lost in those, though, and I
Yeah.
think they're trying to work that spark back. And I think that's understandable. I think we continue to have to understand that. And we'll be talking a few, rumoured MCU things shortly. But I think we have to keep our focus in that realm that we're still in. I know we've had a lot of stuff, but it's not been that many years. It's been, 4 years since Endgame?
Yeah.
During which there was a pandemic, where there was virtually nothing content-wise coming out, movies-wise, TV show-wise. We've not had that much time yet to develop with the new batch of characters that we've got in there. And because we've got so much, it can feel like so much, and it can feel like it's lost its spark. I have a feeling that spark will be regained by the time we get to our big Avengers-based movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Our next big ones. I have a feeling it will. But it would be wrong of me to say that some of that hasn't been lost on the general public.
Yeah.
And I think that's from a movie point of view, which is why I think TV continues to be in such a strong position. Even though we continue to lament about all the different streaming services popping up everywhere.
Yes.
That competition is strong.
Oh, yeah.
And blockbuster movie competition isn't as strong. It's nowhere near as strong in terms of genuine quality content.
And the amount of stuff coming
The
out.
smaller movies are. The smaller movies are. The more modestly budgeted movies, the movies that even big studios are willing to put
like
a lot of time and effort in, a lot of faith in.
Yeah.
Are obviously really strong. There's still lots and lots of so many wonderful movies coming out every year. Of course there is. They're just not the ones that are the most talked about generally. I'm very generally speaking. With TV, the most successful TV shows, the most talked about TV shows tend to actually be the best ones. Rather than just the most popular ones, because
and ones that are on streaming,
there's a lot more time
as opposed to network shows, like
certainly,
your ABC
Oh
shows
God.
and your NBC
I mean, Freeview television in Britain has gone ridiculously terrible. Never mind American network TV.
I mean, there are few things that kind of glimmer through, like your, Grey's Anatomy that's still trucking along somehow, and Abbott Elementary really kind of being a shining light. But
I suppose,
but few and far between are the kind of network shows. You're getting more popularity in shows that are developed by streaming services. So.
And I suppose there is the odd BBC and ITV show that does
kind of break through.
Seep out. That does, break through. Seep out, what a horribly negative way of putting that. Seep out as though it's an infection. Rather than break through like the superstar that powerful, kind of is. And I'm certainly hoping that, the new wave of Doctor Who continues to have that as well. The specials we're getting this year with Tennant back and going into going into the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa starting next year. I certainly hope Doctor Who continues. I think Doctor Who's in a world of its own, really, in terms of BBC TV. That it's so much
considering
bigger
how long it's been going on.
It's so much bigger than everything else there.
And the big kind of resurgence it had, and everything else.
It is a world of its own, but I think it's reasonable to say that just TV and streaming TV is just generally getting stronger, even if some of what we think of as the major streaming shows, your Netflix is arguably getting weaker, and has been getting weaker for years when you think about it. But it's because all these other ones are doing better. That, fallen giant, perhaps Netflix may turn into.
And especially with their kind of new rules
with
that they're
the
setting and the
silly, yeah,
cracking down.
silly
Yeah.
rules,
So
silly rules.
dumb.
It
That's
is
not gonna
going to
work out
make
for them.
people really
Yeah.
fall off.
Yeah.
There is still a handful of great stuff that I find on Netflix original stuff.
Yeah.
New Netflix original stuff. There's great stuff on there. I think it just might be a streaming service that's lost its spark. If we're
Maybe.
going to continue to
Or just,
use
other
use
services
that
have just
analogy.
gotten more competitive and really are
Yeah.
upping their game in terms of their content. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Well,
Yes.
streaming wars and TV discussion over. That was
Yes.
fun, wasn't it? What
Yeah.
about the indication of even more movies this time coming out of Middle Earth? Now, of
Yes.
course, we have our illustrious Lord of the Rings trilogy, our somewhat less illustrious The Hobbit trilogy, some people really liked it for some reason, some people violently hated
Didn't.
it.
Yes.
The
And an
Rings of Power.
original Amazon series, as we're talking about streaming
I
services.
really liked the Rings of Power.
I couldn't really get into it. I mean, I was never a hardcore kind of Middle Earth fan. I kind of got into those movies pretty late. There were several attempts earlier on in my life to kind of watch them and just found them boring. But kind of once I had to kind of watch them for a, study capacity in being
I
on
see.
a movie trivia show, I was able to kind of open my mind to them a little bit more and actually found myself enjoying them. So
Yeah.
became a fan later, but definitely still not something that I can wholly wrap my head around because of so much lore and deeper things happening because of literature kind of based stuff and things like that. So yeah, never a huge fan, but enjoyable films. And um I don't know, do you feel like there's more story to be told there with Middle Earth
There's
things?
of course there is, because there's thousands upon thousands of years
Yeah.
to get into, and the Rings of Power is obviously going to end up covering a lot of time.
But
But these
inherently,
are
do you think
movies they're talking about.
But you inherently do think there are things that you would want to know more about that, like, maybe were interests were piqued in other Middle Earth media?
Areas, yes. Areas of the world. And similarly to the Rings of Power, similar to why I enjoy the Rings of Power, notes on legends and things like that, because there's so
Yeah.
many unfinished things from Tolkien's writing
Yeah.
that's what the Rings of Power are going off.
Yeah.
They're going off snippets and crafting an entire story around snippets of stone cold facts.
Yeah.
And this is obviously what any new Middle Earth based thing is going to be. People have seemed to be getting confused. These are not remakes of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm even led to believe there may be involvement from Peter Jackson, which I think would excite a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just because of how, even if the Hobbits were the Hobbits, in terms of movies, I still tend to enjoy those Hobbit movies. I know they're overblown, but they're taking us to places
There are
in Middle
elements
Earth
in
that
there I definitely latch on
there
to.
are. They're taking us to places within Middle Earth that the Lord of the Rings never did, because it
Yeah.
never went that far east, and if you read The Hobbit, there's a lot of really good adaptation in there. There's just way too much additional nonsense.
Yeah.
Which is the issue there. That's not the issue with Lord of the Rings. I think the additional stuff in Lord of the Rings is almost not additional stuff, because Lord of the Rings is already a monstrous story.
Yeah.
But any more time we can spend in Middle Earth, and if we are getting news of new movies being in development through Warner Brothers and New Line, which makes you think about Peter Jackson's potential involvement, then I just think that's very, very exciting, because I think
Yeah.
a lot of fans of that world have always had the Lord of the Rings trilogy, even the weird animated ones.
Yeah.
You know, people like those. I think Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings animated movie's really strange, but
Yeah.
if that was the only thing you had, you'd kind of latch onto it if you were a fan of the books. Now, obviously, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is always there. It's always going to be there.
Yes.
Like I said, though, these are not remakes that are in development at all.
It's just more stories.
It's just more stories. And this is what I said about the Rings of Power. Is like, for the people that didn't like the Rings of Power, but you like Middle Earth, you like Lord of the Rings, then just go and watch Lord of the Rings again.
Yeah.
Just go and watch those, because they
definitely
are
interesting
wonderful.
to have the thought of delving back into this world and maybe
Fleshing more
meeting
things out.
and maybe meeting new characters, going to different places that we've only heard of or have been talked about. So yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, and obviously with its ridiculously rich and unfinished history, it's or unauthorized history, because of the situation with his, Tolkien's son Christopher Tolkien, and what is definitive or not when it comes to the history of Tolkien's world. It gets a little bit, you kind of just choose what you want to choose. You kind of just, that happened, and I'm happy with that being the way forward. It's not actually, I think this is what's good about what George R.R. Martin does and is doing and continues to do with Westeros and Essos, is have its history be ridiculously, meticulously detailed. To the point of written records, and everything's all about written records. And before we had written records, then it is legend, and that makes sense, because that's what it's like in the real world. Before we had written records, it is just kind of guesswork for the most part, and that is what the history of that world is. That's not what the history of Tolkien's world is. The history of Tolkien's world is, oh, I have this idea, let's write this down. Oh no, I don't like that, let's do it this way instead. Oh dear, now I've died, so we don't know which is which. That's basically how that went.
How that works,
But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. We obviously know nothing. We just know there is in development projects. I think it's exciting.
Yeah,
as a
that's
Middle
really
Earth
cool
fan.
for fans of Middle Earth.
Yes. Well, what about some MCU rumours then, Jeannine? Or a definitive casting, which is that STEVEN YEUN, Oscar-winning STEVEN YEUN, is now going to play a part in the Thunderbolts TV show. We don't know who he's playing, but he's going to be in it, and I just think this is, well, why not? It makes sense, you get your up-and-coming actor who has, starts on TV and does well there, goes into movies, starts off well, keeps doing well, wins an Oscar, becomes really well loved. Blockbuster franchise.
Yes, like that's the trajectory.
That's the trajectory.
That is kind of how those things go and flow. And didn't quite work out for people like Halle Berry, who, won an Oscar.
No, it didn't.
And then went on to do Catwoman. But that's usually the plan. Like, you're gonna do your big superhero.
As good as we like her as Storm, I think we generally like her as Storm. Storm doesn't get too much to do in the X-Men movies.
Yes. But yeah, definitely kind of the road that you would seem very right at that time in your career. People really love him. He also does a voice on that Invincible show, on that animated show on Amazon. Again, talking about successful streaming original shows. So yeah, I think it's a great move for him. I feel bad for the girl who played Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, I
She
know,
kind
right?
of gets cut, and then we have somebody new kind of coming in. But I'm excited for him. There's not a lot of word on who he's going to play, but yeah, excited to just see an actor who we really love, and in terms of representation as well.
Yeah.
Like getting him in there, and I'm really excited to see who he could be in the world of the MCU. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he could literally be playing anybody. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily a hero. It's not necessarily a villain. It's not necessarily a
One of the
civilian.
Thunderbolts. Yeah.
One of, he could be General Ross's new head of security. He could
Yeah.
be anybody. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it is good. I think it is good to see someone like him going into the MCU. I think it will bring fans of his into it.
Yeah.
And I think it always does help. I know not that the MCU needs help, but I was talking
Yeah.
about it losing its spark a little bit when it can bring genuine, award-winning acting
Well, I
into
mean,
it. I think it
I
does help it
when you did
as
say
a.
that, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that he actually won. I think he was
I'm sure he
nominated.
did.
So
I'm
I'm
sure he
looking,
did.
and no, it just says he's nominated. Nominated for
Really?
Minari, but he didn't win. No.
He didn't win.
No.
Why do I remember him winning? Must have won something. Say he won the SAG award, something. He must have won something. We don't need to fact check it now. He definitely won something. He must have done. Okay,
No.
Oscar nominee. Oh, so it's not that much worse.
No, definitely not.
Not that much worse.
But yes, just fact checking. Because I'm like, did he win? I think I would have been more excited if he had won, if I remembered him winning. It just was my thought process when you said that. So I kind of just looked. And yes, but still, Oscar nominated actor. But still, that is very much the trajectory when you're in that phase of your career, to move on to kind of the bigger blockbuster popular thing. And if you're going to do that, I think the MCU is the right place to do that. It's a proven entity. And also, I think they put value in telling great stories and developing great characters. And, there's more to the MCU than just kind of what people think it is, what the kind of uppity ones of the movie media world kind of think. There are some true stories and some real character moments that can come out of MCU movies. So,
and I think there certainly is now, because with it delving into TV, it's able to spend more time with characters, and it's able to flesh out even more,
exactly,
people
yes,
that were originally two-dimensional. If you go back and watch phase 1 of the MCU, there's not much depth in there at all. They are all presented as fairly inhuman beings. They are presented as superheroes, and now we're at a stage where even the most godlike superhero is deeply humanized in the MCU.
Yeah.
Thor, let's just call Thor what he is.
But even Loki as well. Like, we get
even
more
Loki.
depth with him. Side characters like Bucky and Falcon, and we get a whole backstory on, their kind of trauma and their kind of issues with each other and dealing with the loss of Steve and their kind of lives coming back from the blip and all kinds of, just deeper things and racial issues and kind of, who is worthy of taking over this moniker and all of these things. So the MCU definitely an entity that is the big blockbuster thing that's going to get your name out there, and going to kind of give you this notoriety in your career, but also a place that does put an effort in telling kind of great stories and creating great characters and creating great moments and having some strong emotional pinnings as well. So I think a perfect next step for an actor like STEVEN Yeun. So I'm excited for this news, and I'm really excited to see who he's going to be playing. So,
as am I. Well, what about, we're talking about the MCU, going into perhaps having lost its spark, but I have faith it will have regained its spark by its upcoming Avengers movies in a couple of years' time, or a few years' time. Is the one in 2025 and one in 2026 or something like that? Supposedly.
Yeah. Yes, but
Avengers: The Kang Dynasty.
Yes, so we are getting rumors.
Is that the first or the second one? I forget.
What do you mean?
There's two Avengers movies. Which one's that?
I think that's the first of the two.
That's the first one.
There are rumors that Spider-Man will be leading this film. He was the head of this story, and we definitely left this version of Spider-Man in a very interesting place. Kind of this really fun realization that these first three films were his origin story. That like there was kind of all this talk of we're not going to delve too much into the origin. We've seen the origin of Spider-Man. But then these three films kind of sneaking on you that they were kind of in reality his origin story. So we've left this Peter Parker in a really interesting place in terms of time and how he's remembered, and and
he isn't remembered
exactly, and where he goes from here. And now he's really just become this anonymous, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man with no super suit and really just man on the street, kind of one man little army with just what he can do and nothing really backing him and no support. So I'm curious to see if these rumors are in fact true, this version of Spider-Man really delving back into these huge kind of stakes and situations and powerful villains and having to kind of do all that, of now kind of being this street level kind of hero again. So really, really curious to see what this version of Peter, what this version of Spider-Man is going to have to face in terms of a multiversal war type kind of situation that's seemingly what's going to be going on with this movie.
Now, there's no Spider-Man 4 before this movie.
No.
Is there? So will this be the next? I mean, we don't know if this is the next time we'll end up seeing Tom Holland's Peter Parker. We don't know, because he could show up in something else entirely. A TV show. He could show up in something else. I'm thinking I like the idea of him as a group leader, because again it comes a little bit into the Tony Stark protege elements of
also him. He was kind of the leader. He was Peter number one. He was leading the three Peters in that kind of battle.
Yes.
So he was kind of a full circle character moment if he is kind of the leader and probably the most seasoned young person of this new batch of young Avengers that have been peppered into these other shows and movies thus far. So he would be the most seasoned one to kind of lead a crew of new Avengers, if there were to be any character to be able to do that, who is still very young.
He would also be the oldest one.
Yes, and he would be a very bridge character. He would be someone who we've met, who has interacted with our kind of original early phase characters, while also still being a part of kind of the new era of the MCU. So he's very much a bridge character who can kind of, bring all these new, younger, kind of fresh-faced characters into the mix of whatever this Avengers movie is going to be. So I think if these rumors are true, I think that's kind of the perfect pick to really bridge the gap between old and new.
I think it makes
delving into a story with Kang and everything like that. So hopefully that's true and they craft a really good story, because I am so curious to see what's going on with this new Peter, with this new Spider-Man, and how we left him and how he's kind of coping with everything. I really want to see that, because I saw a very good friend of ours, Tina Farrow, kind of ranting about how she really felt nothing from this new Ant-Man movie. How the last time she really felt stakes and emotion from an MCU movie was that last Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'm inclined to agree with her to a degree, because when I heard that line in the trailer, like, you know, that line about we both just have to lose. I thought that that was selling huge stakes, that Scott was
In
maybe
the
going to
Spider-Man.
die.
Oh wait,
No,
in the
in the
Ant-Man trailer.
Quantumanium, yes, in the Quantumanium trailer when he says, you know, I don't have to win, we both just have to lose. That sold huge stakes for me of potentially Scott dying or getting stuck in the quantum realm, or we lose somebody, and that is what is the impetus for Cassie to then kind of step up and be this new young Avenger and take that spot, as you know, Peter is kind of taking Tony's spot, and you know, or you know, even Riri kind of
Yeah,
taking Tony's spot, and we have
yeah,
different characters kind of filling these different phases, and um you know, Falcon stepping into the Captain America list. So yes, so I thought maybe, you know, it was going to sell some huge stakes for that movie, and so when we didn't get that and things kind of seemingly worked out well, yes, I was happy because these are likable characters that we love, but I was also disappointed because we didn't have these huge kind of emotional stakes that made me feel something inherently like we got with that Spider-Man movie. So I will agree with Tina's rant in the fact that while I did enjoy Ant-Man Quantumania, there were very little stakes that felt strong and really something that's going to draw a strong emotion out of you. And I think with this new phase, I know it's early on, but you are kind of building this new phase, kind of going into new characters kind of taking over this mantle. So I think it would make sense to phase out kind of other characters, or really bring newer characters to the forefront, or really still just have some stakes so that not everything feels as easy as it should, or wrapped up as tightly in a bow as it should. Um and yeah, so I definitely liked that Peter really giving us stakes, and so I'm really wanting to see more of that, and I think we can get more kind of emotion and loss, and really like feel like we could lose something really important to us, um with this version of Peter in these movies going forward, that we didn't really get with what we've gotten so far with these with this Ant-Man movie. So if that
I'm
makes
tr-
sense, I don't know.
I'm trying to make my own thoughts make sense in my own head at the moment, because I don't disagree with that at all. I don't disagree with No Way Home being the last MCU project, because I think we have to say project now, because we can't just
Yeah,
say
I'd
movie
say
because of the
movie, yeah,
TV
the
shows
TV.
as well. It is the last MCU project that felt like anything could happen.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is fair, because not even the heavy genuine emotion of Wakanda Forever
Yeah.
were you ever really thinking of stakes, even though there's significant death in Wakanda Forever. But I think we ultimately knew
We
where
knew
the
that that
movie
was
would
going,
end.
yes, and it was very much self-contained and not really a bigger picture thing. It was very much a personal story about a personal group of people in this universe, and it didn't really go outside of
That is
that.
true.
What
Yes, that
happened
is
in No
true.
Way Home was definitely playing it was a very wholly a Spider-Man story, but everything that happened in that movie created a ripple and implications that are going to affect the later MCU.
Yeah, I think No Way Home was the biggest thing that the MCU produced in that phase 4. Of course it
Yeah.
was. I think both successfully, critically, financially, and genuine quality. I think
Yeah.
it was probably the best thing. And like you said, it does have the most stakes. I think almost it is a spoil,
Yeah.
not a spoiler as a it ruins other stories. A spoiler as in a quality spoiler for the rest of that phase. Well, not even a quality spoiler, a story spoiler. And I'm using the word spoiler in completely the wrong context, by the way. What I mean is it, as a story, is so aside from the rest of its phase.
Yeah.
Because the rest of phase 4, literally apart from Wakanda Forever, is new things.
Yeah.
Is new people. Is meet this person, meet this person, meet this person, meet this person, meet this person. New. Learn about them.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any stakes in origin things because we're learning about them. Your
And we're
stakes
getting
come
new
in your
people. Yeah.
second and your third movies.
Yeah.
And your second and your third series or whatever it may be. Which is why I think No Way Home. I think you had to have No Way Home where you had to have it in terms of a run of
but I mean,
story.
this is our third Ant-Man movie. This is like what our 4th, 5th appearance with Ant-Man.
See, I'm not even comparing it to Quantumania. I know that's what we're talking about, but I'm
just
I'm
saying,
comparing it to everything else.
What Ant-Man, Ant-Man is the setup for Kang and like what he's doing and where he's going to go in this Kang Dynasty film. So the fact that like our third Spider-Man movie had so many stakes and so much emotion, this third Ant-Man, I think, was allowed to be able to do that as well, because it's like, the 5th, 6th appearance of this character, 3rd film of this character. So it had the potential to be allowed, even though it's kind of introducing a new element and a new phase. It's still the 3rd film of a character that had the opening to really make us feel more than it did.
I mean, if we're being honest, it could have killed off Hank.
Yeah.
It could have done that. I think
or
that
Janet,
would have felt...
or yeah.
I think people are more endeared to Hank because he's been there since the start and he is the original Ant-Man. So I think that would have been an equivalent Aunt May moment.
True.
From No Way Home for Scott. They could have done that. I think that is what Quantumania didn't want to focus on as much as it wanted to focus on being what the majority of phase 4 ended up being, which was meet this person.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately kind of what it was. It was meet Kang. Here he is.
Yes.
Aha.
So, I mean, I just bring up that movie to say that I think at least with this version of Spider-Man potentially leading this new phase and being connected to Kang and all of that opens us up to some potential emotional kind of stakes, or even just a really strong emotional journey because of where this Spider-Man now is in his story.
Yeah, because he's obviously will have to, well, reintroduce himself to everybody.
Exactly. So that's just another thing in comparing it to Quantumania in the way that film didn't really have stakes. And the last time we really felt that was with this Spider-Man. We could potentially get back to kind of a really strong emotional place in terms of the MCU as a whole, not just kind of a singular thing like Wakanda Forever, but the MCU as a whole and where these characters are going to go and how their futures are shaped. With this Spider-Man kind of being the head of this film. But as of right now, still, I don't think anything's fully confirmed. But I think it's a strong way to go, I think. If they do choose to go that direction.
It is. It would make sense. And because not only is the MCU's Spider-Man, I think, a really good depiction of Spider-Man, from a character point of view, I think it's a really good depiction of Spider-Man. I think there's elements to his movies, his first 2 movies, shall I say. I think No Way Home sits on its own as just an entirely enjoyable mesh of Spider-Man nonsense.
Yes, so good, so fun.
Because obviously it's essentially live action Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
It just, you can't help but kind of love it anyway. It doesn't even have to make story sense, even though it really does.
Yeah.
You would just love that anyway. There's elements to those first 2 movies. There's elements to some of the things that Spider-Man is in or has been in the MCU. that are a little bit strange, like the suits, the metal suits, the iron suits. I don't like the iron suits. You know, I don't like the... I grew up on Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, obviously, so I do prefer the shoot the web out of the wrist rather than the web shooters. I know the web shooters is a traditional thing. I know it is. But I do prefer that natural idea. The climbing up the walls. I mean, how often do we see Tom Holland climb up walls? He swings around.
Yeah.
But do we see him climb up a building a lot? No. Tobey Maguire was always climbing up buildings and climbing around rooftops and all doing all that kind of stuff.
And we even saw him do it quite a bit out of costume as well, like that whole montage of learning.
Exactly. Tom Holland never does any of that. Never. Really, does he? He's always twinkling on his computers and doing all that kind of stuff. There's elements, because he is essentially Tony Stark Jr., it works for this world.
Yeah.
But that's clearly what he's going to even eventually kind of turn into, seemingly, if these rumours are true.
Yes.
Even though he will have to reintroduce himself to all of our big players, because I did make the joke last week, actually, in our when we were talking about Quantumania fully, that how is Spider-Man going to fight Kang? I can see Doctor Strange and Wanda and people like that fighting Kang. That makes sense to me. But Spider-Man and Shang-Chi and people like that, hand-to-hand kind of people, without any sorcerer-type powers.
Scott held his own a little bit in that fight. If Shang-Chi has his rings, I don't know.
Maybe the rings do something, yes. But, you know, hand-to-hand fight, sure, but there's a multiversal power, a reality kind of power there that I think only someone like Strange or Wanda can really deal with.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, Strange is probably going to be ridiculously key again to what's going on, isn't he? Eventually. But I don't hate the idea of Spider-Man becoming more of a leader at all, and I certainly love the idea of him becoming a leader for all the young guys, if not the older guys, if not the Doctor Strange, if not Sam Wilson, if, you know, people like that may come together to fight, and that will likely come together to fight. He can certainly be a leader for all the younger guys.
Yeah.
You've got me thinking as well now. Was Tony Stark the actual leader of the Avengers, even though everybody thought he was? Or was it actually Steve? It was definitely Steve.
I mean, it was Steve. Steve was the leader, but, like, Tony was kind of the... I mean, he was kind of the start of the MCU. So that's what gives him kind of this leadership energy. And then even with the Accords and that split that happens, he does get a decent number of people behind him.
Everybody was on Team Steve. If you were on Team Tony, you were weird. That's my song about Captain America Civil War. It was Captain America's movie. How dare you side with Tony? I love Steve Rogers.
It's only because he got guilted by Alfred Woodard. That's why.
Exactly. You shouldn't be letting other people guilt trip him into things.
Yes.
Anthony. Let's call him Anthony. He doesn't like being called Anthony. I can tell.
Yes.
Doesn't matter now. He's not alive. That's not a nice thing to say.
No, it's not.
He's a fictional character. Relax. Steve Rogers. Is Steve Rogers still alive? Do we even know?
Yes, he's Joe Biden.
Yes, he probably is.
He's an old man.
I want that. Captain America New World Order better confirm the
whereabouts,
still aliveness of old Steve Rogers, please. I'd like that.
Yeah.
I'm 97 years old, Sam. Yeah. Come on, Steve. You're still chucking along.
Yes.
We like this. Anyway, should we hype up The Mandalorian season 3 a little bit, Jeannine, because it is coming out this next week.
Yes, I'm excited. I really loved this show. Um, I know on Scoundrels Inc., a great Star Wars podcast, they talk a lot about, will people find it frustrating to have to kind of bounce to a portion of Book of Boba Fett if they didn't
They
watch
should
it
have watched
to
it.
kind of understand how this story is just going to start with him and Grogu back together. Because there were some people who didn't like it or didn't want to watch it or whatever. So if there is going to be some type of kind of recap situation for those people, or how's that going to kind of play going into the season? But I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett, and I enjoyed it kind of delving into the, Mandalorian season 2.5 kind of little moments
Yeah.
by the end, and them even teaming up and working together. And I thought all that worked. So for people who didn't watch it, that's a bit disappointing, but definitely excited to get back into this new season. He's going to Mandalore, and um this kind of father-son relationship that has developed between the two of them is so sweet. And who he's going to meet and who he's going to fight and who he's going to team up with. I'm just really excited. I just saw something where Christopher Lloyd is going to be joining this new season, so I'm really excited to
He
see
is,
him.
yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm really excited.
I just have every faith it's going to continue
To be
to be
great.
as
Yeah.
good as the last 2 seasons of it has. And I did enjoy the Book of Boba Fett. I think the Book of Boba Fett was unfairly criticised because it was more of a sit around and talk show.
Yes, and people wanted action and whatever.
It was more of a let's build up the culture and world of Tatooine show almost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I appreciated it for that. This Mandalorian season 3 will be, you're getting to chases because there's the dark saber and all this sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Bo-Katan will be back and well involved, won't she? And Katie Sackhoff doing a big job there.
Yeah.
Whether the likes of Ahsoka Tano and a Luke Skywalker are showing up again, we don't know at this point. But obviously Rosario Dawson's getting her own Ahsoka Tano show.
Yeah.
That's not that far off, I don't think either. I have so much fondness for The Mandalorian because it made me enjoy or be able to enjoy Star Wars again.
Yeah, I think
After
it
the
was a
vitriol of the
of
community
those last 3 films, last 2 in
surrounding them,
particular.
yeah.
And yeah, like, I came in being a Star Wars fan, at that stage of things being terrible, because while I had seen the movies, I, had only seen them maybe once, hadn't really seen all of them in completion. Don't know that I had really seen all of the prequels or really paid attention to kind of things about them. But it wasn't until I saw Force Awakens where it just really excited me about the franchise, and really just I think that was kind of one of the early concepts of this kind of legacy sequel thing. I think that was kind of just starting
Yeah.
to happen with movies, doing that and bringing back old characters. And I liked the idea of that it really got me excited to go back and really put some focus into those movies. But it was before I had even seen The Force Awakens. Just seeing that trailer and getting excited about it made me go back and really delve into those early films and really kind of enjoying them for the first time. Um, and So I was becoming a fan of Star Wars at the most kind of toxic time. So
Yeah.
to find something in The Mandalorian that really kind of unified everybody, that everyone was seemingly enjoying together and really didn't have a lot of criticism of and could really get into, was a nice kind of peaceful time in the universe,
Yeah,
So
I enjoy the style of it. I enjoy the fact it can spend an entire episode that essentially furthers nothing of a story, but is just something fun to watch and
Yeah.
has its character story in there, has its furthering of character arc in there, but plot wise, it's tended in those last 2 seasons to only really turn up plot wise at like episode 3 and then episode 7 to the finale is when
Yeah.
it kind of turns up plot wise, which is interesting. But I think it means you can casually enjoy it, which I think is important for a show like this. Obviously, as we get further into it now, we're in season 3, we're going to have more bigger stakes involved, like
Yeah.
say with the dark saber situation. Who's after that? Yes, you're going back to Mandalore. It's a serious deal, you know. Grogu's growing Jedi powers and
Yeah.
everything, all this kind of stuff. It is more and more serious. You know, Din Djarin's story is more involved with more people
Yes.
as we continue to go on and on and on, and this makes him more of a significant character in the entire world, in the entire, you know,
Lore of Star Wars and everything.
lore of Star Wars, exactly. That I think knowing that can make me feel tentative, because I feel like, oh dear, we're into like serious story moments again. People are going to get mad if something they don't like happens, and then all you're going to get on Twitter is just people being violent to each other again, and I can't be doing with that anymore because I had enough of that the last time Star Wars movies were coming out.
Yeah.
You know, too much of it. But I don't think that's the case with The Mandalorian, because I think it can still be a show people enjoy casually because of its ability to have episodic stories in it that are just, let's go to this planet today, it's full of water.
Yes, like we have to do
You
this
know?
one thing, like Monster of the Week types, like
It's
episode
great.
to episode with a consistent through line that you're following, but also kind of these very episodic meeting fun characters along the way type story, which is a lot of fun. And the fact that you are so endeared and excited and even attracted to a character whose face we rarely see, like
That's
that
because
just
we know underneath it's Pedro Pascal.
I am aware, but just how he performs without us even seeing his face, and we can feel his expressions. We can feel, you know, how he's saying things, how he's emoting through his voice and the motions and the movements. Like how is that even possible? But it's somehow you can read him so well even without seeing his face. And I think that just speaks to kind of how good the performance is, how good the storytelling is, how fleshed out this character has become. And so I'm just excited to see where this story is going to go, and really hyped for this new season coming out this week. So
Absolutely. I know season 4 is apparently
all written by Jon Favreau.
as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
So it ain't stopping anytime soon.
Yeah.
This story, which is exciting. I think is something to keep being excited about. But Jeannine, I think it's about time for our Let's Talk now.
Yes.
Which is our main review of today's episode, which is, of course, the new ridiculous movie Cocaine Bear, or its sequel, as I've come up with on my sign today, Ecstasy Elephant.
Yeah.
Which is the sequel I want to see, which is an elephant that does a lot of ecstasy. And we just see what happens, because that's what this movie does. That's what people in this movie does. That detective guy, he's just like, yeah, give the bear some cocaine. Let's see what effect it has on him. And we're just like, yeah, okay, this is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not a reasonable thing to do at all. This is a ridiculous movie, and I loved it.
Yeah, based on true events, this actually did happen. Cocaine was dropped in this woods area, and a bear ate it and died not long after. But this kind of takes the turn of, what if the bear ate it and went crazy and got super stoned and high and like killed people and went on this rampage. So I really love the mix of kind of the horrific kills and the gruesome nature of it with the comedy. I think it is a great blend. I think Elizabeth Banks has worked with some great comedians and has really taken to that fun sense of humor. I always think maybe sometimes she goes a little extreme with her sense of humor, like in things like Charlie's Angels, there were some kind of jokes that just didn't feel like they landed very well, and even in Pitch Perfect 2, which is the one she directed, also kind of had some jokes that maybe went a little too far or just didn't hit right. But I think she's really kind of honed in a really fun sense of humor, and really love just kind of how gruesome it allowed itself to be, seeing guts getting ripped off and limbs,
Yeah.
and really just being super gory, which I feel like we haven't seen kind of that type of gore in a long time, and done in kind of a comedic way. I think just makes it that much more silly and just entertaining. So
It is, because it's an absolute spectacle horror movie. It's an
yeah.
action horror movie that is entirely there for you to enjoy it, for the audience to enjoy it, not to be, scared by it, as a lot of horror movies want to creep you out or want to terrify you. This
Yeah,
is a
no, it's
horror
very
movie that
much a
wants you to
Tucker
enjoy it.
and Dale type kind of horror comedy, where it's very much, just being silly. The 80s, something about the 80s setting in movies is always just adds to kind of the comedic flair of things.
Yeah,
And
because you can allow it to be over theatrical. You can allow it to be over the top, and when you embrace that in a movie like this, that is a very, very over the top movie in every
yeah.
sense, it just works so well. The setting works so well. The characterizations of it work so well. What actually surprised me the most, and I think credit goes to Elizabeth Banks for this, really, because Elizabeth Banks is also, while she mostly is known as a comedic actress and director, there's plenty of competent drama in Elizabeth Banks roles, in
Hmm.
certain Elizabeth Banks roles, and kind of an honesty to them as well, a genuine humanness to them,
Yeah.
that I think is brought into this movie quite significantly and quite honestly. Not it almost takes moments to take you out of the fact it's a movie about a coked up bear on a rampage, and becomes about, a father and son, and becomes about a mother and daughter,
And a friendship, and
and a
a husband who's
friendship.
just lost his wife. And
Yeah,
yeah.
it takes its time to not treat. I mean, Alden Ehrenreich's character in this movie could have been treated ridiculously, and he's treated with so much empathy while being chased down by a coked out bear, that it's surprising that it works as well as it does, that it
Yeah.
blends as well as it does, because I really do think it does. I
Yeah.
think there's maybe one too many groups of people in this movie,
Yeah.
and I think the gang of kids are probably the ones to just make one-dimensional kills.
Yes, definitely there for kind of body count purposes.
Well, they
We
should have
recently
been, but we try and give depth to them, and I think that's maybe one group of people we try and give depth to too far. I think they should have been treated as bear fodder
yeah.
for the movie to feel a little bit crisper, a
Yeah.
little bit kind of smoother. I don't think it's it's far from a messy movie at all. It is a smooth movie. It's not. It's a really actually very well made, well paced movie. It's just, I think it's got a handful, and I mean 2 or 3 too many main characters.
Yeah. Had there been like one
Um,
or two things or that we were really focusing in on, and then everyone else could kind of just be these kind of silly characters that are coming in. Like we are talking this week about Car Wash, this kind of hangout movie where we just kind of have
yeah,
random
on the main show.
characters. Yeah, have random characters there, and we just kind of pop in with each of them and get a little sense of their personality, and they kind of just do something funny, and then we move on to somebody else, and we just kind of meet this rotating door of just silly fun characters. But we do focus on certain ones more specifically. This movie could have benefited on really kind of having, more focused characters, you know, one or two less, and really just kind of focusing on one or two kind of groups, and then having your just kind of fun rotating characters. Whereas this one, I think it tries to take several directions and tries to pull focus to a bunch of different things that
Yeah.
it loses kind of that focus and in moments, and even kind of that final act that kind of fell apart a little bit for me, where it kind of was going by the end, and then more focusing on Ray Liotta's character in that whole situation. It kind of
Well, I
lost a bit of its momentum, I think, for me when it got there.
see. I like the 2 main groups we get are Alden Ehrenreich and O'Shea Jackson Jr., who are the drug, who
Yeah.
are part of the drug operation,
Yeah.
where all this cocaine has been thrown out of this plane for a reason, because Sid White, played by the late great Ray Liotta,
Yeah.
is supposed to send these guys out to go and collect it, and it's all supposed to be there, and it's all fine, and this is just how they operate this business, right? That's how that works. So they go out there, but obviously a bear's got into it, and
Yeah.
the movie is the movie then. So that's why they are there. You have Keri Russell and her daughter and her daughter's friend, because her daughter and her daughter's friend skip school and go out to
the woods.
the national forest,
Yeah.
as though this is something that you would do if you were skipping school. Would you just go on a hike? I wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
I'm 13 and I'm skipping
Well,
school.
she
I
has
know
this
where
whole
I'm gonna go. To the park.
well, she
To the national park.
well, she has this whole thing where she wants to paint the falls or whatever, and it was something she was going to do with her mom, but her mom
I don't even
was
know
like,
what that means. I didn't know what that meant for the entire movie. What does it mean, paint the falls? What are you gonna do? Paint some rocks
I
around the
I don't
waterfall? What does
know.
it mean?
I don't know, but
You
like
can't paint water.
obviously she had paints with her, so I think it's just implied it was something that going up to the woods was something she was going to do with her mom, but her mom was
Or
like,
does
no,
she
we're gonna
mean
go.
paint the falls like she's going to paint a picture of the falls? Because that
No,
wasn't made clear. Like, where's her canvas then?
I don't know. I think it's just supposed to be implied it's something to go up there with her mother and something they
Oh,
were
I
going
know
to
that,
do
yeah.
together. And because her mom was going to be ditching her or taking her on this trip with the boyfriend, now it was something they couldn't do. So she was just going to go do it on her own. So that was kind of the impetus of her going to do that
Oh, I
without her
know,
mom.
yeah.
And even her
I
friend
get that.
I like that her friend even calls her out and is like, you're just doing this because you want attention from your mom and you want to get caught and you want her to worry about you. Just admit it, you know? So I like him kind of calling her out on that. But uh yeah, they didn't really explain what exactly that means, but I guess it's just supposed to be this
It
is a
doesn't
thing she was going to
matter.
do with her mom, and because she can't do it with her mom, she's going to do it on her own to get that attention. So yeah.
It doesn't matter, but I think those two central groups do bring a lot of surprising heart to this movie. Now, I was going into this movie expecting a bear on a rampage movie, And there's plenty of the movie that is a bear on a rampage, you know, killing people, people running away from a bear, people hiding from the bear getting tricked by throwing cocaine this way, so we all run this way. And this is what I was expecting from this movie. I just wasn't expecting the level of heart that it does have. And perhaps because I was viewing it and had seen early reactions of it that had said, this is a great homage to 80s B-movie animal attack movies and things like this. Then I'm just thinking, okay, this is going to be an 80s B-movie animal attack movie where all the characters are nothing people and you're just there for the vibes.
And you're just there, and you're just there to watch random people get eaten. But they actually kind of create these stories around these people. So I feel like maybe a little too much focus was maybe put on kind of the kind of robber kids, and a little bit too much focus on the ranger and, you know,
and Jessie Tyler Ferguson with a stupid haircut.
Yes, and her whole crush on him and that whole kind of thing, I think was put a little too much emphasis on that in terms of kind of pulling focus away from the two main interesting plot points. So I wish they would have just kind of felt more like, you know, bodies for the kill count, as opposed to kind of, because I mean, while they spent a little too much time with them, it still didn't do much to flesh them out enough. So it was like this weird imbalance.
No, it's not like you cared about them when they just got mutilated.
Exactly. So they spent too much time, but not enough time to really make you care, but too much time that it pulled away from other things they could have focused on.
You'd have rather than just have got mutilated, you know, because then you might have been able to have one more scene of the people you actually do care about. And allowing you to care about them more, because I think by the end of the movie we do feel emotional stakes. We do feel a desire to want these characters to survive, to get away from the danger.
I mean, another character we do get some focus on. How did you feel about this focus on the cop and his dog and that whole kind of
now that I love. I love it. I love it so much.
Like at first he's frustrated. He's frustrated because the dog is like not, you know, a manly type of Labrador man's best friend. It's like this floofy dog. But then by the end, he's like really kind of worried about her and wants to make sure she's okay and misses her. And
the detective who's obviously after, you know, Ray Liotta's drug ring and has been searching, you know, and it's been on his list for years by the sounds of it. I'm entirely into this story and this character because he does feel like he's plucked out of a nonsense animal attack movie from a few decades ago.
And giving him this dog subplot is just really great kind of comedic beats. And I was like, I felt like I was the only person laughing at the moments when he was like really worried about the dog.
You know what? So I felt like I was the only person. I'm sure there were a couple of people in my cinema screening that walked out.
Yes, I had a whole group of people walk out.
I'm certain there were. And I don't think they knew what they were getting into because this was a nonsense movie and there was plenty of nonsense in it. But this detective stole the entire movie for me. I thought he was great. I really did. Very, very funny. I mean, there is a lot of genuine comedy in this movie, I think. And because it is a movie that is as kind of bombastic as its title, because what movies called this these days? You know, mainstream Hollywood is a very, very prudish place these days. This is not the mid-80s anymore. You can't just throw anything in a movie and it be okay.
Yeah, it'd be okay. Yeah, because it's a product of its time, and
you know, you think. I mean, I've heard, not that this has anything to do with this movie, but I've heard people talking about Babylon. Damien Chazelle's Babylon being essentially a movie that's entirely set at orgies but being deeply sexless.
Oh, yeah.
Which, like, you do question, surely, why?
Yeah.
If you're going to have your movie set there,
At that time,
go
just
all
go
out
for
with
it.
it.
Yeah.
You know, this movie does want to go all out with it, and I think from a cocaine standpoint, from a
Yeah.
drug fueled standpoint, it really, really does. But it's obviously it's not doing the whole, yeah, let's take cocaine, this is great. It's showing, please don't, this is very dangerous.
Yes,
Clearly,
even that, like, we have a scene where the kids take it and they're just like, "Oh, this
it's
is
so funny.
disgusting." Yeah.
It's so funny though, because yeah, the little, I
I
mean, the
take it all
kid
the
is about
time. Yeah.
13, but he looks about 7, and he's just like, yeah, I take coke all the time. All right, how do you do it then? You eat it.
You just eat it like a spoonful, like a
How
tablespoon.
much do you eat? A tablespoon. Oh my god! Could you imagine? No,
Yikes.
it would bleed your
Yeah.
throat internally. It would not. You would die.
Yes.
You would die straight up.
Yes. We do get an interesting bit of casting here. Do you think it was a purposeful casting to cast a man who played a character who was said to have relations with bears, Morgan?
He was, wasn't he? Yes,
Yeah.
he was. I'd forgotten about that. I see. He's weird for me because I really like the opening with Christopher Hivju and his partner.
Yeah.
I think they work really well as that ridiculous, over the top opening.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have come back in the movie.
No.
Why is he? Why does he come back at 2/3 of the way through the movie just to be like, yeah, I
She's
know
in
where
this.
your
Yeah.
daughter is. She's in the
Yeah.
cave. He didn't need to just leave him at the beginning of the. You don't need to bring all your characters. You don't need to have. Everyone doesn't need depth, right?
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't need. Some characters can just be bear fodder, and
Yeah.
they should have been. And I think that's the only aspect of this movie that I felt wasn't absolutely perfect for what it was trying to be.
Yeah.
Is it was just it gave too much depth to too many people.
Characters, and they didn't just let it, because like the whole paramedic characters, like them just having these crazy kind of situation with them, I thought that worked perfectly.
It did. They
You
came,
know?
they had a situation, they were funny for the time, and then they got mutilated.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie should have been, because the bear's completely insane. The bear, I actually think the bear looked pretty good.
Yes, for being a
CG
CGI bear, like there were moments where it looked really real. It interacted with the characters really well and seamlessly. I mean, there were some moments where you could kind of tell, obviously, like the cubs and things as well. But for the most part, it looked really good for literally not even being a thing that existed.
Yeah, I did. I liked how the bear was. I really did like the kills. I liked the embracing of the gore
Yeah.
that it did have. It didn't feel like it held back on the gore at all.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't hold back on the copious amounts of sprinkled cocaine everywhere.
Right?
There is actually one point where the poor detective, he stood on top of that wooden
I love where
gazebo.
he doesn't know how, he's like, when I get down from here, and then he's like takes at least 5 minutes trying to figure out how to get down.
Do you know what I love most is that we see a scene of him walking up to this gazebo, seeing the duffel bag of cocaine
Yeah.
up stashed at the top, and then he's just like, I need to get up there. But he's like he's a slightly older gentleman. He's a slightly heavier set gentleman.
Yeah.
You can't imagine him easily getting up there. And then, like, the very next scene is Alden Ehrenreich and O'Shea Jackson Jr. coming up there. And he ends up just on the top of the gazebo.
But they were like, how'd you even get up there? He's like, oh, like I hurt my hip a little bit. trying
I
to
hurt my
climb
hip
up.
jumping from that tree over there. You have not climbed up a tree and jumped across to the roof of that gazebo from a tree, sir. You have not done that. I'm
But I
not
love him.
having any of it.
You know, he's this authority figure trying to assert some dominance over these two criminals, and he still admits, "Oh, I hurt my hip a little bit."
He's great. I love him to death. I could
Yeah.
watch an entire movie of him.
And him like really just like finding himself missing the dog and like really worrying about her. Yeah.
I was really upset that he died.
Yes. Oh, I don't think we
Because
said that we were going to talk spoilers, so we might have to just put a little spoiler
oh, we
warning
will
somewhere.
we'll put a thing. We'll put a
Yeah.
thing.
But
I was though, because I could have watched an entire movie of him.
yeah, he's great.
I just think he, as a character, is treated exactly in the tone I
Yeah.
wanted this movie to be.
Definitely.
While I appreciated the heart within Alden Ehrenreich and O'Shea Jackson and Keri Russell, I wanted. I think I wanted more of the movie to be like him.
Yeah.
So I was thankful he was in there.
Yeah, and had this really kind of fun moment with them, and then the bear actually coming up and them having to deal with all of that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and this kind of standoff between them. It really made for a great sequence. I thought one of my more favorite sequences in this movie.
It's a very, very enjoyable movie.
Yes, I had a lot of fun with it.
A very, very funny movie. I should say it's Isaiah Whitlock Jr. as well, playing the detective. It's a very, very funny movie. A completely ludicrous movie. And in a strange way, a fitting way to remember Ray Liotta. Because his most famous character was pretty famous for ending up doing a lot of cocaine and ruining his own life. Anyway, Henry Hill.
Yeah.
So it works, doesn't it? And there's a
Yeah.
nice little in-loving memory of Ray
Liotta at the end. Yeah.
And I like him as a deeply evil drug villain. Actually.
Yeah.
I liked him playing this really sinister role.
And also kind of annoyed grandpa.
And also annoyed grandpa, because this is the tone that should have been taken. He's quite silly at times because he's just like, you left your kid with me. What was I supposed to do with the kid? I was gonna just leave him there. I need to do my stuff, I need to go out and do my job.
Yeah.
But he's also genuinely evil.
Yeah.
And he's the one that ends up killing poor Detective Bob.
Yeah.
With his big sniper or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's kind of injury comedy in the movie as well. Because how O'Shea Jackson Jr. stays alive for as long as he does, I don't know. Because he's constantly getting he gets his fingers shot off, he gets stabbed.
Yeah.
He gets scratched by the bear. At one point, actually, Alden Ehrenreich does seemingly get flattened by the bear.
Crushed. Yeah. And in an interesting way, finds out that it is, in fact, a female bear.
Yes. So that's funny as well. And I suppose in a way as well, it's nice to see Alden Ehrenreich have fun.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't seen him in a while.
We haven't, I don't think. It's really nice to see him have fun in a movie. It's nice to see O'Shea Jackson Jr. carry on his trajectory of becoming more of his own actor rather than just his father's son.
Yes, and I saw, and speaking of him, I saw, there's this kind of big conversation looming around nepo babies and nepotism babies.
Yes.
And a lot of them are really just in denial of what that means. People aren't kind of hating on you for being a nepotism baby. No one is saying that that is a bad
No.
thing. No one is putting a stigma on it, but they are recognizing that you have a door opened for you where some people have to climb a billion ladders.
Yeah.
You have an open door. And that's all people are saying that means. You
Like,
maybe don't
that's
have to
fine
audition.
because that's
Yes,
the way of things. That's how you
exactly.
were born.
You maybe don't audition for something. You can just get the part. And you've since been able to prove that you were able to do your own thing and make the most of that opportunity that you were given because of your nepotism. And that's all people are saying. Just acknowledge the fact that, yes, I got it easier to get in the door, but I still was able to prove that I could do the job that I did once I got through the door. And that's all people are saying for these people to admit. So he has this great kind of take on it. He's like, when people call me a nepotism baby, I take that as a badge of honor. Of course, I love to represent my father and be compared to him in that way because he's my hero. I love him and he has, opened doors for me. But I'm the one who has to walk through that door and be a professional and prove myself once I walk through that door. And that's what I strive to do every single day. So I don't take it as a hit or an insult or something to be ashamed of or something to take as a criticism or something to take as an insult. I take that as a badge of honor. You're comparing me to my father. You're connecting me to my father, who is my hero, who is someone I look up to, who is someone who worked really hard. And me being a product of his hard work, that's a compliment. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to step through that door and prove myself through the door that was opened by my father. And I still have to do the work of proving myself. And I try to do that every day. So I don't take this nepotism baby thing as a negative thing. So he has a great take on that. And he's shown that in the work he's done, that he walks through that door and proves himself as an actor and tries to do more and be a professional and be a great performer in his own right and still not take anything away from how he was able to get there and his father coming before him and all of that. So I really love him and really enjoyed him in this movie.
I think he's continuing to do that. He certainly shows it in this. I'd go as far as to say he's probably the strongest part of the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
To be honest, in terms of
he gets a little fight scene.
In terms of an all-round performance, he's probably the strongest part of this movie. I just really did enjoy this movie. It was more than I thought it was going to be. Sometimes less than I thought it was going to be, but had plenty and enough elements of exactly what I wanted from it for me to have just as much fun.
And be entertained. Yeah, I had a good time with Cocaine Bear. Yeah, I had a good time.
Cocaine Bear for the win. Where is the sequel? Ecstasy Elephant. Please make it. It doesn't have to be based on true events like this movie was at all, but please make a whole host. I want a new
franchise.
Era. Not a franchise, just an era of drugged out animal attack movies. Ecstasy Elephant, Marijuana Moose. Although that one wouldn't be very good, would it? That would just be a really relaxed kind of moose.
Out.
Yeah. Pill popping pigeon. There's one. That'd be good. That'd be great.
Oh no.
A pigeon just on prescription drugs, just going
Ritalin
crazy.
raccoon. Yeah.
Oh, it works. It works.
Yeah.
Heroin heron. No. That would be silly.
Yeah.
That would be silly. That's too far. Heroin's too far. Sorry. Anyway, Jeannine, I think that will do it for our review of Cocaine Bear today. Applause for everybody because we enjoyed it. Very nice. There's a hell of a lot of movies coming soon as well, so plenty more reviews on upcoming Monday Madnesses and extra ones most likely because there's a lot in March.
Yeah.
For both of us. It's exciting.
Yes.
But let's finish off today's episode, Jeannine, as we always like to, with some fun and games, because we have animal movies. Yeah.
Yes.
In fun and games today, a Guess the Animal movie, a bit of an animal movie trivia situation. Jeannine, I think you've got questions on kind of comedic animal-based movies. I have questions on animal horror movies.
Yes. As this
as long as
movie
the-
is kind of a little bit of both.
It is. Well, it is, yeah. As long as the movie is centered around an animal,
Yes.
it's all fair game, I think, really, Jeannine. We only have a few questions. We only have 3 questions or guesses each. Would you like to go first? I assume the answer is yes.
Yes.
Let the fun and games begin. Okay, this 2019 movie, starring the female lead from The Maze Runner and Galadriel, just gives everyone one more reason to fear your house flooding. What if you live near a swamp with alligators everywhere?
What's that movie called? Lake Placid?
No, Lake Placid is an alligator animal attack movie. This was Crawl.
Oh,
Crawl.
okay.
Yes. An alligator movie.
Oh, yes, gets in the house during the storm.
Gets in the house during the storm, yes.
Okay. Which obviously you gave the year, duh. My mind just totally like
Lake Placid
it was way early.
mid-2000s.
Yes. Sorry, me. I'm just like, okay. Recently remade for Disney, Law Meets Pa in this slobbery 80s crime comedy.
I believe this would be Turner and Hooch.
That is correct.
Yes. This movie that came later in the career of a terribly famous director showed the claustrophobia of a phone booth, and behind the scenes also showed just what a creep this terribly famous director kind of was when he liked one of his female leads.
What? Phone booth.
Ooh.
Repeat.
This movie that came later in the career of a terribly famous director showed the claustrophobia of a phone booth, and also behind the scenes just showed what a creep he kind of was when he liked one of his female leads. Ooh. Animal horror movies, come on.
The Birds?
It is The Birds, yes, it is The Birds. Hitchcock was a creep to Tippi Hedren. This is well known.
Yes. Narrated by Roscoe Lee Brown, this talking animal film tells the story of one animal that'll do what it needs to prove everyone wrong and take on a whole new role.
Air Bud.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
I put emphasis on a specific set of words.
I feel like you did. Yes, it's not.
Yes.
I don't know. It felt like it might have been Air Bud. Beethoven. Babe. Okay.
I kind of lingered on that'll do.
No, yes. Oh, yes, I should have got it from that. I'm sorry. That was bad. Oh, how do I not get that from?
Yeah.
Yes, fair enough. Yes, babe. We like that. It's not Air Bud, silly basketball movie. Well, these animals in this movie have been thought as the lowest of the low for centuries, but one lonely guy takes a shine to them. If only everyone didn't grind him down all the time, the lead evil animal with the sweetest song in the world wouldn't have taken over his entire psyche, and all the violence may have been stopped.
Would this happen to be Willard?
This is Willard, yes. This is very obviously Willard. Everyone's favourite rat movie.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Final question of the game. Originally based on a book, this lovable clothes-wearing animal character migrates from Peru to this famously used movie popular city. In what film?
Well, this would of course be Paddington.
That is correct.
The only Peruvian bear anybody's ever heard of.
Yes.
Well, I do believe this was a tie this week.
Yes.
A 2-all tie. Oh,
Yes.
how exciting. Don't we like? What are better, animal comedy movies like those or animal attack horror movies like Willard?
Yes.
Willard's better. Willard's obviously better. Willard's great.
Yes, it's great.
What is better, Willard or Ben? Willard, it's definitely
Willard.
Ben,
but you get a great
Ben's
song
a strange
movie. Great song.
Go and watch it. Go and watch it and go and listen to the Willard and Ben episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. If you
So good.
If you never listen to
Great
that,
retrospective.
It really is. It really is. Fun show, as always. Jeannine, crazy animals. A good, some really good what's up conversations actually as well. Streaming things, MCU things, even some Star Wars things.
Yeah.
We like sometimes to delve a little bit deeper into our own opinions on such matters and such topics.
That's why this is our kickback show. Like, our conversation can go a very organic way without it really feeling, strict to, the topics that we get into. So I love the free form of Monday Madness.
Well, yes, it is our kickback show. It is Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine, but it is not the only show we have on the podcast feed, nor is it the only thing we have on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, if indeed you are watching on the YouTube channel and not just listening on any of the podcasts feed. I say any of the podcast feeds, it's the same podcast feed. It's just on many different places. It doesn't change. That would be so much work. Imagine if I had to do that.
Oh gosh,
that would be terrifying. But it isn't though, is it, Jeannine? We have other things. What are they?
Well, on this very YouTube channel, the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, of course, we have some fun things you can check out. We have watch-alongs, we have reviews, we have retro trailer reactions. I've been doing a ton of Scream
we should do
content.
More retro trailer reactions.
We do need to get back into that. It's been a minute, but you can go back and watch some of our fun ones, especially on Willard and Ben. We did those trailers.
Yes, that's true. Go and do that.
I've been doing a ton of Scream content. I am obsessed with the franchise. I'm so excited for Scream 6. So I've been doing some reviews, some Easter egg videos, some killer breakdowns, all kinds of fun Scream content. Still more to come, all in anticipation of Scream 6. I also have some little vlog things I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing some fun Scream, going to some fun Scream events. So keep an eye out for that. Morgan is a physical media collector, so he does some really great in-depth videos taking a look at his physical media hauls and his collections of films that he has purchased and building his great movie collection. So you can check those out on the channel as well.
Some of which you can see here on the right-hand side of my screen.
So we really have some fun stuff. We're trying to do more stuff all the time. I know I've mentioned today I would love to do a series on the channel Morgan hasn't seen, but a TV version where we kind of delve into shows Morgan hasn't watched and do kind of episode to episode little reviews. That'd be a really fun thing. So yeah, keep an eye out on the channel, hit the notification bell, all kinds of stuff. Subscribe. We always have fun stuff that we're working on all the time for the channel. So please check it out. It's a Wonderful Podcast on YouTube. But you can also listen to this show on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed. We have this show, Monday Madness, of course. We also have our Wednesday show, Morgan Hasn't Seen, where I force Morgan to watch movies he hasn't seen. We just are completing a series on love game rom-coms for February. And in March, in honor of Creed 3, we're going to be talking some fighting/boxing movies. So that'll be fun to get into. So check out the first episode of that series coming this week on Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. And of course, every Friday we have the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast, where we give love and talk classic films. So check that out every Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have you covered on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed every Monday, and any other random time we have you covered on the It's a Wonderful podcast YouTube channel with fun content coming all the time.
Very, very true. Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Amazon Music, everywhere else for the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. If you would like to support us on Patreon or donate in any such way, because we can't do what we do without those generous donations, there are links in the description down below. If you have been watching, it's also been scrolling by at the bottom of the screen for the entire show. If you are feeling very generous today, please consider doing that. We certainly do not ask for it, but we love those that do support us in that way dearly. You can, of course, just follow us on Twitter at the show at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on Twitter at the Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in the because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram and TikTok at the Purple Dawn. All your animal attack movies are where?
You can find me Jeannine Bean _ on Twitter, Jeannine Bean on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, you can see the link scrolling by or check it in the description below, or just search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. We have some really fun designs there, some logos for all of our shows, including some fun Stranger Things designs, so check it out. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Yes, there we go. There is only one thing left to do, Jeannine. I would like you to do it in an impression of a bear, please.
Ooh.
Preferably one that's on cocaine. Growl. That's really freaked people out as well, especially the audio-only people. Bye.
Is that a good or a bad thing?